Thanks for joining us today, guys. We're going to do a deep dive into the Oklahoma Sooners. We just did one on our last video for North Carolina State. These two teams we hit early in the season that a lot of SEC fans may not know a lot about. But they will with Oklahoma pretty soon. But today, let's look at them, Bob. They 10-3 last year, heck of a good record, bounced back year from the year before. But what do we know about this year's team?
Like you said, Tim, had a good year last year, 10-3. You know, let's look at their schedule real quick here. Because they when I started looking at all this stuff, when you're listening to their fans, their podcasts, well, I've listened to about 10, 20, 30 hours of podcast, reading practice reports. When you read all that stuff, it sounds like we're fixing to play the 85 Bears on defense and, somewhere in the 80s 49ers. So I had to see, how good were they last year? Okay, let's get a little something for some substance here. They drilled Arkansas State. I mean,
Yeah, thanks, Butch.
yeah, I think he was crying on the sideline in that game. There was some clips of that.
Yeah, I'd say he might have been crying before too. He knew that beating was coming.
Yeah, they didn't let up. They beat a good SMU team, 28-11. Beat Tulsa good. Had a mediocre game, I think, against Cincinnati. Beat them 20-6 because Cincinnati really wasn't all that good at all last year.
Mm-hmm.
Beat Iowa State really good, and then the trophy for them last year was the thriller winning Texas 34-30.
Heck of a game.
Yes, that was. I mean, that game was right there almost with like the 2023 Bama game probably for them. I mean, because that was
22 Bama game.
22 Bama game. Yeah, so that was a wild game right there.
Yeah, and anytime you can beat little UT out there.
Exactly. Then they barely beat Central Florida, which wasn't really all that good last year.
That could have been an emotional high though,
Maybe.
coming off of that.
But the next two games they lose. They lose to Kansas at Kansas, 38-33, and then they lose 24-27 at Oklahoma State. Then they go on to beat some other teams, the West Virginia, BYU, TCU, and then lose the bowl game 24-38 against Arizona, the first game that Jackson Arnold starts. So when you're looking at that schedule, Tim, there's some good if you're an Oklahoma fan, and there are definitely some bad.
Well, they're 8 points away from being undefeated. By the same token, though, do the same thing on a couple of wins, and they could have been close to 8-4.
One huge thing, Tim, when we dove into this Oklahoma team, is their record at home is scares the crap out of me as a Tennessee fan. I would feel much better about this game if it was in Neyland Stadium.
Or New Orleans or anywhere else other than Norman. Heupel has not done particularly great on the road here at UT yet. I believe it is coming, but man, that home record in the last 24, 25 years, there's not been a team in the nation that's had a better home record than Oklahoma.
That's including Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, that's Texas. That's an amazing number, and that worries me.
Yeah. In fact, Bob, I think they have as many conference championships as they do home losses. Now, that's either a whole lot of championships or not very many home losses, or maybe a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah, and then you throw in the fact that this is Oklahoma's first SEC game, the return of Heupel. This is going to be an interesting show. I'm sure you're going to hear that talked about.
Electric
Yeah, for the first
atmosphere.
30 minutes of the broadcast at least. So we'll see how that goes. That does bother me a little bit.
It should.
And it should. But, Tim, let's also look at the team itself, their offense and defense.
Well, Bob, can I jump in and say one thing real fast?
Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to pull for Oklahoma in every little game this year other than Tennessee. And I couldn't have always said that, but to tell a little personal story, our mother was separated from her younger brothers when she was probably like 3 or 4, and she spent pretty much the rest of her life up till about 5 years ago hunting for them. Many times trying to get military records, newspapers, Thought they were in Oklahoma, but wasn't sure. And then we did an ancestry test just a few years ago. Did find her brothers. Unfortunately, one had passed away. But we flew out, and she got to meet her brother, her surviving brother, who had no idea even had a big sister.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk into a family, a house full of perfect strangers, and 3 or 4 days later, it was like I've known these people my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
It was so I'm going to pull for whatever team they pull for, son.
Yeah.
So I will be a Sooner fan on days that they don't play Tennessee.
I hear you.
Now, leaving that, let's whoop their ass on that day.
Right.
But good luck on all the others.
Yeah. You know what? When I'm looking at some of the keys for this game, Tim, it is, in fact, it's at Oklahoma. It is the battle of the five-star quarterbacks. You got Nico, redshirt freshman against redshirt freshman Jackson Arnold, who was just barely behind Nico in most of these rankings. Some very similar guys, except for Jackson Arnold, 6'1". It's about the only difference. And he's kind of mobile too.
Oh yeah, he is. He was top 6, 7 player in the nation, not just quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So they're excited about their star quarterback, just like we are.
Right.
But let's get down into what we can expect out of him. He had a really good game against Arizona in the bowl game. If you take away his turnovers, he put the ball in harm's way too much in that game.
Yeah, it's true.
And then in one of their scrimmages this year, he'd done the same thing. Had several turnovers. But now, otherwise, throughout fall camp, been very protective of the ball.
That's true. And when you listen to these podcasts and, news reports and stuff, they feel pretty happy about him. There's a little bit of questions about his decision making. And hopefully, considering we're his first big test, maybe Nico a little bit more tested with having played to NC State at that point. But hopefully he makes some more bad decisions.
Bad decisions. One thing I wonder if it plays into it, being a short quarterback in today's game.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some people talking that he's been kind of trying to get a higher release point. And if you were to let go of that ball just a little too early on that, you'll sell them. And that will lead to turnovers. So, but I'm not sure that's really what caused all that.
Right.
But
Well,
he's got some players around him, though.
Absolutely, Tim. He does. He's got some star type players. But Gavin Sawchuk, running back, average 6.2 yards carry. That's not shabby. When I start to look at tailback numbers, that's what you want to look at, the yards per carry. Pretty daggone strong. And then wide receiver, you have Deion Burks, the transfer from Purdue.
Remember that name.
He's going to be, they're thinking, maybe best player on the team, maybe. And that's with a couple of All-American candidates. Big time player, kind of a slot, jitterbug kind of guy, kind of very similar to, in a lot of ways, the KC Concepcion will be playing on with NC State. And then they have the 6'4" version of Chris Brazzell, Dante Thornton, and Nick Anderson. He led them in touchdowns last year.
Yeah, 10 of them, and averaged 21 yards a catch. He can move.
They believe both these guys are NFL guys. So he's got some targets.
And they like the receivers beyond them, too. They're very happy with the depth of their room.
Mm-hmm.
It might sound familiar.
Right.
Does Tennessee fans. But he's got some weapons to throw to, including a tight end that they brought in that you guys might remember the name of.
Yeah. Bowers Sharp.
Mm-hmm. I think, might be wrong, but I think he was on campus when Holden Stays committed to us, but I could be wrong.
The name does sound familiar. That may be true.
He was a converted quarterback, and they absolutely love him in
Right.
Norman. His toughness, his blocking, his catching, they think they got stuck still.
Yeah, when you listen to the podcast, news reports and stuff, they say most improved position on the team, tight end. Let's go to their weakness, though, on that offense, Tim.
That everybody's talking about.
It is probably my number one key to the game is our defense line, outstanding defensive line versus their offensive line, which lost 5 starters. Now, they got some transfers in. Just how good will they be, Tim? And they've also been banged up a lot in fall camp. Several of them missing a lot of practice. I don't think it's nothing major at this point. It don't seem like, but
It's not the way you want to start fall camp.
That's the way they don't want to start a fall camp. That's the way I wanted
Wanted
them to start a fall camp.
Good point.
Right.
Now I will tell you, they feel fairly confident about putting a decent line out.
Mhm.
They absolutely love their offensive line coach, Bill Bedenbaugh.
Yeah.
They think of him like most people think of Sam Pittman and Phil Fulmer back in the day.
Right. Yeah, they love him.
As good as anybody in the nation putting out offensive linemen. He's got a job of cutting in front of him, though.
He does.
You've got Michael Tarkin probably starting at left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I'm going to put some out there. I think to be the 5 starters, but that could change. Jacob Sexton, probably left guard. Brought in Branson Hickman for center.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from who was it, SMU? I think he come from.
Think so.
I think so. But anyway, then and Lord help me with this name, Fabichi Wewu at right guard, and then Jake Taylor over at right tackle. I think the one thing that jumps out at me in that group of guys is their left tackle, Michael Tarkin. They like his consistency and everything like that. They're concerned because he's not very athletic.
Yeah, that was what jumped out on me with some of the practice report stuff when they used the word not athletic.
Yeah, unathletic, I think that's what they said. But
going against James Pierce,
who would be under the athletic.
Yeah, yes. I think really, and this goes back to something we talked about earlier, Tim. If one way to offset a great defensive line, and I'm not going to, whining just yet. Let's wait till the game. But
why wait?
Is by holding the defensive line at home, you get a little bit more better calls, generally speaking. But hopefully, like we said, we get a little bit of that star treatment from Pierce. And hopefully, if there is any holding, it's called often. But
yeah, and then call it when there ain't. So that's fine with me.
True, too, yeah. But yeah.
But as you said earlier, that's the key, because if we can't get to them, those wide receivers we just spoke about against our secondary that'd be the key an Oklahoma person to be looking at right now.
Absolutely, because we're talking about them losing all 5 offensive linemen. They're looking at Tennessee lost all
5 defensive backs.
Yeah. They don't know we replaced them with all superstars.
Yeah. Or, well, more like it, we didn't shed tears for any of them that left.
Right. Yeah.
I think we encouraged a few.
I agree with that. Yeah.
But that said, I think that pretty much covers that side of the ball. But let's look at defensively, because this is a unit in Norman that they're very excited about.
They're saying best defensive unit they've had in the last 10 years. Phil Steele, which is somebody we respect as a football analyst or whatever you want to call him, has their secondary top in the conference. Linebackers tops in the conference.
Not a bad place to be.
I mean, so, I kind of disagree with a little bit of that, but it tells you that they're very strong in the secondary and the linebackers.
Yeah, because if you look at some of their stats last year, it wouldn't necessarily indicate some of that, but people passed on them a whole lot. And when it's a 2023, 24, I mean, come on, man. People can move the ball through the air. I don't care what kind of defense you have.
There were some misleading stats on that when I looked up. One thing I look at more than anything when you're talking about an up-tempo type team like Tennessee and like Oklahoma was last year.
Yeah, but Jeff Levy was the coordinator.
Yards per play defense, We was pretty good at that. We was like number 17 in the country. They was like number 50 in the country.
But once again, people passed a whole lot on them, and that's going to up that a little bit.
They did. Some numbers on their defense, though, and their secondary that don't sound as bad when you start looking at it. This opposing quarterbacks only completed 56.2 yards, or 56.2% of their passes.
Very good.
14th in the country. The QBR was 10th. So, and they also had 19 receptions, was number 2 in the country in that. So, it sounded like
I'll take that stuff any day of the week.
If I'm, only the other way around, yeah.
If I'm them, I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah, I'd definitely take those numbers. Those numbers sound great. So,
well, let's dive into some of those guys getting it done, because they're doing a good job, not just man-to-man, but also in their coverages. So I'm going to start at, normally we start at defensive line guys, but today we're going to start at linebacker, because there's a kid there that you want to watch, Danny Stutzman. All-American candidate. And I was watching some of his film on him, and I got to say, I've seen guys that I would say are faster.
Yeah.
Guys I would say are stronger.
Hmm.
Uh, but man, I like watching this kid play, Bob.
Yeah.
He can cover sideline to sideline. I saw him interceptions 25 yards down the field when he dropped into zone coverage. Uh, Quarterbacks taking off running. I see him stepping up, taking them down.
Hmm.
Uh, this kid is smart kid. He reads a play really quickly and is able to penetrate the line of scrimmage as good as any guy I've seen. He's 6'4", but a little slender, I would say.
Hmm.
Is able to go in if your tackles or guards or whoever make a misstep somewhere, he's slicing in right behind them and taking your guy down. Danny Sussman's a stud. Watch his kid. Um, and he's got a pretty decent running mate beside him, Kip Lewis.
Yeah. Yeah. Really happy with him.
Really happy. And their backups. They're
Yeah.
thrilled with their backups, to be honest about it. But that leads us to the defensive backs
Hmm.
and their other All-American candidate, Billy Bowman Jr., Bob.
Yeah. He's a more physical guy, seems like than Stutzman is. He's a headhunter, more athletic. Big time guy. I mean, they love him. Honestly, man, when you're looking at him and you start doing the research, they love a lot of their defense.
A lot of their defense backs.
They're
They
thinking
can share a few with us if they wanted to.
yeah. I mean, they think they have two future stars back behind them at the safety spots.
A couple of five-star
Yeah.
kids that looks like they'll live up to expectations.
Yeah. Then they have the Gentry Williams at corner. Well, I think he's been banged up a little bit. They really like him,
Well,
but
they love him. They think he's a star, but he can't keep healthy. Had some, I think, shoulder surgery off season, and then dinged it up a little bit. Practiced. Probably ain't going to get a lot more uh, scrimmaging the rest of the fall. Hoping to get him back by the first of the year.
yeah, the overwhelming information you get when you research and watch podcasts and read practice reports and stuff, they're happy with their defensive backfield, their depth. Same thing with their linebackers. Uh, really happy with those two departments. Let's switch over to the defensive line. They feel a lot better about their defensive line after getting the TCU transfer in.
Yeah, Dominic Williams, a young kid, skipped his senior season in high school, come on into TCU. Um, he's about 6'1", 320, and he's a player.
He's the type of guy who I've seen give Cooper Mays problems in the past because he's the guy, when I watched his film, he just bulldozes people. I mean, he just pushes the pocket. So we'll see. I'm a little bit concerned about that one.
I am too, and his running mate is a name we are familiar with, DeJohn Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Was a good, solid player
Yeah.
in the rotation for us while he was
Right.
here.
Yeah.
But now they've got they're not going to get probably a whole lot of pass rush push out of those two guys, but they got a freshman, Jaden Jackson, who's they absolutely love.
No,
And we'll see if he's able to help by the time they play us.
I think he's still in the same kind of body type as Williams is. He's kind of on the shorter side, like 6'1", 300.
They got a 5-star David Stone, but he's not made that transition yet
Right.
enough to help.
You got Ethan Downs at strong side defensive end. They really like him.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is more a little twitched up guy, and I can't think of his name right now.
It was R. Mason.
Yeah.
Thomas.
Maybe.
Thomas, yes.
Yeah.
A little bit twitchier athlete, and they brought some guys in the portal too to challenge him. Because if you had a issue with that defensive line, it's pass pressure.
Right. So what kind of defense they got? Who knows? I mean, I think it's going to be really good.
Mhm.
Will it be like top 10, top 15 in the country? Who knows? But
I don't know, but that's going to be a good quality defense.
it is. Overall, I think Oklahoma's going to have a really good team.
Yeah. Quickly said special teams too. It's funny they've got a new offense coordinator, defense coordinator, and special teams coordinator because they stunk last year on special teams.
They did.
They struggled. Okay, that wasn't what they needed to be. They went out and got a guy from San Diego State who's highly thought of, and they brought in a kicker to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're expecting improved results, and
That
they
was-
need it because they struggled with it last year.
Yeah, when you listen to their people, their two biggest concerns: offensive line, special teams. I mean,
Mhm. Well, guys, we appreciate you joining us. I hope you enjoyed the thing. If you're an Oklahoma fan and know anything we missed or anything, please leave a comment.
Mhm.
If you're a Tennessee fan, say big orange to us.
Go Vols.
Go Vols.